And welcome back to Moms Get Real. I'm Juju Chang in New York. We're taking a closer look at when mean girls become mean moms. What is it about moms, especially mommy bloggers, when they harsh each other? Our panel today is Rami Lasali of TrueMomConfessions.com, psychiatrist Dr. Janet Taylor, and Beth Feldman of RollMommy.com. Here we are like the Brady Bunch in the box of four. But before we continue our conversation, I want to bring in Mary McCarthy. She's the founder of PajamsAndCoffee.com. Mary, I know that you're familiar with all this negativity that's out there online. What are your overall thoughts?
I think one of the things that's the most concerning is that there's an unfortunate culture of online conversation that's become disrespectful. And I think when people are commenting, and we call them comment trolls for a reason. I mean, blogging is the bridge for many of us that bridges our communities and our homes and our families. And there's trolls under that bridge, and they will leave comments that will be hurtful and negative. And it's really up to us. We can't control the comments that go out, but we can control how we respond to them. And
do you think it's the nature of the topics that are online? Because websites are looking for edgy, provocative, wedge-driving issues.
I agree. I mean, people are talking about controversial things, and so there's going to be controversial responses. But I think there should just be a basic level of respect that people are willing to offer when they're leaving a comment on someone else's blog. It's like going into someone's house. You don't walk into someone's house and tell them that the food tastes awful. You try to be respectful, and it's the same thing if you're commenting on someone's blog.
And yet people say that, you know, the food is terrible all the time online.
They do.
Yeah.
And what's worse?
I don't even think, I mean, obviously when we put up controversial topics, spanking versus, you know, any other kind of discipline, should you discipline other people's kids, that certainly generates a very lively conversation, but frankly, dirty dishes can inspire really mean comments. So I think it's really the platform, less so the topic.
Right. And Mary, are you out there doing hand-to-hand combat in this forum, or are you more of a, I don't know, observer?
I can be an observer often, but I have a tendency to be the blogger that if there's an elephant in the living room and everyone's stepping around it, I'm pretty much saying, hey, there's an elephant in the living room. So
there's a big old elephant. Well, give me an example of the big old elephant.
I just try to be honest. Sometimes there's these unspoken rules about blogging and Twitter and what you're supposed to say or not say to other bloggers, and I just feel like honesty should be the best policy for everybody, and that instead of trying to, you know, dance around whatever people have perceptions of what you're allowed to say or not say to other bloggers, that people should just be honest and respectful, and, you know, really cherish the friendships that you've made with other bloggers. There's a lot of positive out there too.
Thank you, Mary, for joining us. I appreciate it. Now let's go back to the quad split for a second, as we like to call it, our panel discussion here. What is it about sort of the advice section of mommying that, you know, elicits and solicits that kind of provocativeness?
Well, I mean, I think the bottom line is, as moms, most of us feel like we're not doing as good a job as our own moms did. So there's a lot of pressure, and there's that just ability to judge other moms and to say, I'm doing it better than you, even when inside you think you don't.
So it's motivated by fear and insecurity?
Yes, and that comes out as blame.
So. Which is kind of counterintuitive, and yet it is.
It is. I mean, and the other part is that, you know, there is freedom of speech, and so, you know, a lot of times when comments are written, one person will write them and then maybe never come back to them. So it's a discharge in a way, but it almost gets to the point where it can be unhealthy, because if that's your only out, is to be able to write something negative to another mom, then you need to look at what you're doing offline in terms of your own sense of sanity and mental health.
Beth, I know you had said you were beaten up over politics and over celebrity. What happened?
Well, the first one, I mean, this is going back to Sarah Palin when she was running for office, and I took a side, and I was attacked for taking the side, and I didn't expect it. And a lot of the posts that I write are tongue-in-cheek. I try to really just be funny about it, and I don't mean to be hurtful, but people who obviously were in favor of her just came out in droves and questioned my, you know, what I was saying. And
that's the other thing, is I've talked to psychiatrists and psychologists who say that sarcasm and comedy sometimes get miscommunicated in emails, so arguably that happens online as well.
Oh yeah, and I said, you know, I think that these people, they have humor missing from their lives. They just have venom. It's terrible.
Rami, you were beat up about Octomom?
I was. I took the position sort of on behalf of my community that, look, specifically about the 911 call. I wasn't defending Octomom for much of her behavior, but I said, look, I could have made that 911 call had I lost a kid in a, in a market or wherever she was. And people came out and said, you're supporting this crazy woman. And, obviously that was just taken out of context.
I think we know intuitively that when someone's feeling fear and insecurity, they lash out. They can be, hypercritical. They can be mean. But how does that work? I mean, why? It just doesn't make sense on some level.
Well, the key word is conversation. I mean, if you're with your other moms and offline, then you can get a sense by nonverbal cues how people are really feeling no matter what they say. Online, you don't have that context. So a simple word or phrase can just incite emotion. And depending on what your own experiences are or the lack of being able to bounce it off someone at that time, you just immediately respond and send it, and you can't call it back. So in some cases, I mean, there are a lot of lonely, alienated, unhappy moms out there, and I think it truly comes across in their post.
Right. So when they're mean, when they act out as mean girls, and how much of this is actually an extension of the mean girl grown up? And what, if anything, can we do to sort of tamp down, that sort of personality trait?
Well, I think part of it's fantasy too, because in some ways, when you feel powerless and you can write a post that makes it seem like you know everything or you're on top of the world, part of that can be fantasy. But I think it's just to remind bloggers, because you certainly don't want to censor moms and bloggers. In some cases you may have to, but you want to invite the conversation, and if you have someone who can patrol the trolls, so to speak, you can do that. But I think there's just gentle reminders that women's and moms' feelings are hurt, and what the goal of the post is really to help other moms and support other moms in most cases.
Thanks to all of my guests today, and we can all continue to this discussion. Go to abcnews.com.